Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Waiting Room, the show that challenges you to thrive, not just survive in every area of your life. This is your host, Ruem, and in this podcast, I'll be talking about the realities of waiting in every season of life. How we wait is more important than the wait itself, so waiting well is what matters. In this episode, I'll be talking about seeing the world. The Places You Will Go, one of my favorite books by Dr. Seuss. This is just a side note, but recently, in the last few years, I learned that we have been saying his name wrong. It's actually Dr. Seuss, like voice. I think I'm still just gonna call him Dr. Seuss because that's what I've always called him. So in this episode, I will not be talking about the book. I will be talking about different places to visit around the world. I love to travel, and I wish I could do it more often. It's just the time and the resources. I suffer from a severe case of wanderlust, and I think honestly just has to do with how I was raised. So just a little bit about me. My mom was a diplomat for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Zimbabwe. So we grew up in different countries around the world. I was born in Zimbabwe. About a year or so later, we moved to Paris, France, and we lived there for 4 years. I have a few memories, especially from the later years of our life in France, because I was about 4 or 5 by the time we left. And then after that, we went back to Zimbabwe, and a couple of years later, we moved to Pretoria, South Africa. And I have a lot more memories from there because I was a little bit older. So, it was a beautiful country, pleasant experience. I have great memories from that time. And then we went back to Zimbabwe. A couple of years later, we moved to Moscow, Russia. So we were there a few years. Now, I was only there for 2. That's where I finished my last 2 years of high school. And I came to the United States to go to college, and I've been here for almost 20 years. But my mom stayed in Moscow for a total of 6 years. And then after that, her and my little sister went back to Zimbabwe, and then they were in the Congo for a few years. From as young as I can remember, we've always enjoyed travel, experiencing new cultures, being around people who are not like us. I've always been in every respect and a lot of places, especially when we were not in Zimbabwe or South Africa, I've always been sort of like the minority. I'm not a stranger to being the new kid in school. That happened. That's an experience I had to go through several times, and especially in a new country or new culture, new language, and all of that. But it didn't intimidate me. I didn't have any problems with it, anxiety or anything. I loved it, and I still do, and I would do it if I could right now. I have a passion to meet new people and see new places and try new things. And along the way, I picked up a few languages. So je parle un peu français and я говорю немного по-русски. Mostly conversational. When you don't use a languages are like muscles. The more you use them, the more they grow. So I haven't used a lot of the languages that I learned in my childhood. But if I'm around somebody who speaks, and a little bit of that vocabulary starts to come back. All right, so in this episode, I'm going to talk about different places to visit around the world. And there's so many countries and so many angles I could come at, but I decided to go through all 7 continents and look at the safest and the least safest countries to visit. It's 7 continents, but I do not have 14 locations. There's 13 because Antarctica. And this ranking is based on several factors. So this is objective and somewhat subjective based on other people's experience. The places where I got a lot of the data rate these countries on several factors by crime rate per capita or stats from socioeconomic factors and different things. So it is not a reflection of the entire people and the entire culture and mindset or anything like that. Okay, so first we'll start with Africa, of course, my homeland. Here, the safest country in Africa is Mauritius. It is an island off the eastern coast, and the languages are Mauritian Creole, French, and English. So if you're going to travel there, you need to use their currency, which is the Mauritian rupee, and they are known for being a great vacation spot. And I've always wanted to go to Mauritius and Seychelles, those two islands. So one day I'll make my way over there. Second, they were kind of like neck and neck, was Botswana as being one of the safest countries in Africa. So if you're not familiar, it is Southern Africa towards the western side of Southern Africa, and the language there is Setswana. Languages there are Setswana and English, and they use the pula for trading as currency, and they have beautiful wildlife reservations there. All right, and then the most unsafe country is South Sudan as of 2021. The main languages there are English and other native languages. So they use the South Sudanese pound, and they're known to be the world's newest country. So they just separated and got their independence in 2011. So that makes them about 10 years old. And then there's Zimbabwe. So we're not the safest, we're not the most unsafe, but I couldn't go through the list and leave out my motherland, my homeland. But if you ever make your way to Africa, I would highly encourage you to visit Zimbabwe. We're in the south, we're right north of South Africa. Our official languages are Shona, Ndebele, and English. So I'm Shona, I speak Shona and English. But we have beautiful attractions. We have Victoria Falls. We have just a rich history, the Great Zimbabwe Monument, and we have wildlife reserves. So if you want to go hunting, it's a good hunting spot. Make your way down there if you ever can. All right, so moving on from Africa, we're going down to Antarctica, and Antarctica has penguins. All right, next is Asia. Safest country in Asia is Japan, which I wasn't surprised. So in Japan, they speak Japanese, and the currency there is a Japanese yen. They are known for pretty much everything. Beautiful architecture, rich history and architecture. Their technology, they are way advanced in their technology than most countries. The art, the cuisine. I love Japanese food. So that's another place on my list of countries to visit. And the most unsafe country in Asia right now is Afghanistan. And it has been for a while. But the main languages there are Dari and Pashto. And they use the Afghani currency. And they're known for being in the news more than any other country this past decade. So I guess they broke the record there. All right, so from Asia, we are moving on to Australia and Oceania, the land down under. So the safest country in this region is New Zealand. There they speak Maori and English, and they use the New Zealand dollar. They are known for sheep, rugby, great vacation spots, beautiful landscapes and beaches, and they also have some forestry there, some like tropical climate forestry, and more sheep. And then the most unsafe place in this region is Sydney. So Sydney is a city in Australia. It's not the capital, but it has a highest rate of violent crime. The main language there is English, and they use the Australian dollar, but they're known for kangaroos, the outback, and dangerous creatures. So I think if you can imagine any creature, whether it's a spider or a snake, and think of the scariest version of it, it's probably going to be found in Australia. All right, but I would still love to go there and see what there is to see there. All right, so from Australia, we're going up to Europe, and the safest country in Europe is Portugal. And there they speak Portuguese, and their currency is euro. And they're known for great destination spots and food and just low crime rate per capita. And the most unsafe as of 2021 is Ukraine. The language there is Ukrainian, and they use the Ukrainian hryvnia. And they're known for their rich culture and history, and it's one of the largest countries in Europe. So there's a lot of history there. I've seen beautiful pictures, so I'd still love to go there. Moving on, we're coming across the Atlantic, and we are looking at North and Central America and the Caribbean. Tomato. Safest country is Canada, of course. I wasn't surprised. And they speak English and French there. They use a Canadian dollar, and they're known for scenery, landscapes, and the Northern Lights. I would love to go see the Northern Lights one day. Ice hockey, maple syrup, and also extreme politeness. This is one of the few countries that was like number in the top 3 politeness. So Canadians are just known to be super nice, which is pretty cool. The most unsafe country in the North Americas is El Salvador. They speak Spanish, and they use the United States dollar for their currency, and they're known for coffee, surfing. Apparently there's some good surfing spots in El Salvador, so if you're a surfer out there, maybe you might want to check their waves out. And their cuisine, I've had Salvadorian food, and it's delicious. So if you ever want to try that, give it a go. All right, and then moving down to our last continent, South America. So the safest country in South America is Chile. They speak Spanish. They use the peso as their currency, and they're known for being the longest country in the world, north to south. So they run along the western border of the South American continent. They also have the driest place on earth, which is Atacama Desert. And then the most unsafe is Venezuela, based on crime rate per capita. They speak Spanish, and they use the Venezuelan bolivar, and they are known for having rich oil reserves. So they have a lot of oil there, and which brings in a lot of revenue for the country, and great cuisine. I happen to have a very good Venezuelan friend, and she's made a dish called arepa for me, which is delicious. If you ever get a chance to try some Venezuelan food, go for it. All right, so went through all 7 continents there, and I will say this list should be taken with a grain of salt. So I didn't come up with the stats here. Keep in mind, people still live there. Life still goes on. So even if it's one of the most unsafe countries, the most dangerous or whatever, you can still visit and you can still have a great experience. So tourists tend to be targets for pickpockets. So just don't look like a tourist. Don't wear a fanny pack and wear a camera around on a lanyard around your neck. So just try to blend in, and if you can, travel with a local guide, somebody who knows the area and who can tell you where to go, where not to go. If you're in the market, whether you're being ripped off or there, different things like that. If you can get an interpreter, that usually helps a lot as well, because tourists, like I said, tend to be taken advantage of. So would I still visit some of these countries even though they're considered unsafe? Absolutely, in a heartbeat, given the opportunity. I would not hesitate. And something that I've learned over the years is, God is always going to protect me. And He has brought me this far with all the places that we've lived in. And some of the places were pretty hostile. I'm not, gonna lie. And, they were not as friendly to people like me, but you just kind of learn to live with it, and life goes on. But the Bible promises me that Lord will keep me from all harm, and he watches over my life, and he watches over me when I go and come, both now and forever. So I hold on to those promises, and I know if I was to step in on any continent, that God is with me. But I also still need to use common sense and wisdom and street smarts. I'm not going to walk around with like money sticking out my pocket, or completely oblivious to what's going on. So spatial awareness is important when you are traveling. And I would say another travel tip is try to learn a little bit of the language, any common phrases that you can before you go. So if you go to a country that doesn't speak your language, if you put the effort in learning a few words or a few phrases, that will go a long way. They'll be more more helpful, and they're nicer to you. But if you just go in there arrogant and you think you're the best thing since sliced bread, that's what puts people off. So and another thing, when you're traveling, a travel tip: don't compare the country you're visiting with your home country, because it's not going to be the same. So what ends up happening is you're comparing, and you end up not liking a country because it doesn't have all these great things that you have in your home country, and then you totally miss what they do have and the beautiful things that they do have. So just kind of go with like a blank slate, no expectations, and just appreciate what you see, what the people you're around, and the experience. And that's what I would suggest. Like I said, I've been different countries, I've had different experiences, mostly good, thank God. I've had mostly good experiences, but not all. Language is a big thing, and I love languages. I love learning languages. I'm always trying to stay on top of my languages and stuff, but just be appreciative of that culture and those people. All right, so this week I would recommend you read an old classic, Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. So it's a great comedy classic, and I've read it several times throughout my life, and it's a great audiobook for travel, road trips as well. I would recommend you get it on audio when you're going on a road trip. All right, so I would challenge you, go out there, see new places, meet new people, get out of your comfort zone. We do the same thing over and over. We're always around the same people, having the same conversations, eating the same things, going to the same places. But, stepping out of your comfort zone and going someplace new causes you to grow, and you get to learn a little bit about yourself that you wouldn't have learned otherwise. And I really don't have much of an option, but I travel solo. I love traveling solo because, most of my friends, their parents, and they're married, so they just can't up and leave and take a weekend off and just go do whatever. But if you're traveling solo, I would recommend, start local, start small, about an hour or so away. And especially if you're not used to it, I wouldn't mind just going to a totally different continent, but that might seem daunting if you're not used to traveling by yourself. So start local and then branch out, go a little bit further away and further. But if you're as daring as I am, book that flight to the other side of the world and just go for it. You'll be surprised how much you can learn from that experience. Well, that is it for today's episode. Thank you for joining me here in the waiting room. Look out for my next episode. In the meantime, please share this podcast with a friend. I would love to hear your feedback. You can email me at thewaitingroom@gmail.com, or you can send me a message on Instagram at The Waiting Room, or you can leave a comment on my website. So all the links are in the description, and the link for the book recommendation for this week. Until then, take care.